Hello everyone and welcome. In this video we're going to be doing a film review on the movie Taxi Driver. Now since the film is quite old, I'm going to go ahead and say this is a spoiler review, so if you haven't seen it yet, I'd go ahead and recommend watching it. It's a fantastic film, you're not going to waste a minute of your time watching it, and let's get right into the video. Without further ado, I'm both blessed and honored to be reviewing such a fantastic film by the name of Taxi Driver. It was directed by Martin Scorsese and stars Robert De Niro. Both individuals are so talented they need no further introduction, but I'm going to go ahead and do so anyways. Starting with the director, Martin Scorsese, he has had a career that spans many decades. He has helmed many great projects and works of art such as Goodfellas, The Wolf of Wall Street, Hugo, and The Aviator, as well as many others. He has always been interested in film, even as young as around 8 years old, I believe. He's been interested in film and has been doing work in film ever since, and has won many awards in the process. Robert De Niro is a talented director who has worked on a few other Martin Scorsese's projects, but has done well on his own and has starred in many other great films such as Raging Bull, Cape Fear, Joker, and many others. The budget for the film was $1.9 million, which is pretty small, but the film made just under $30 million, marking it in at around $28.6 million worldwide. I'm sure the film has made a little bit more since then, but it really does demonstrate an impressive rate of return, not just on a business side, but high demand from the audiences as well. That high demand has translated into many nominations and praise for the film, as it is one of the best films that I think I've ever seen. It's a personal favorite of mine. The film, as I mentioned earlier, stars Robert De Niro as Travis Bickle, Jodie Foster as Iris, Cybill Shepherd as Betsy, Harvey Keitel as Sport, the pimp, and Albert Brooks as Tom, to name a few. Going over the plot, as you can imagine, it's a taxi driver, so we follow a taxi driver by the name of Travis Bickle. He's a 26-year-old former Marine who was honorably discharged and now works very long nights as he has trouble sleeping. He suffers from insomnia. This insomnia, unfortunately, causes him to fall into a negative stupor of alcoholism, medication, and pornography, which of course is good for nobody. And as the viewer, you have to ask yourself, what's bothering him? What's keeping him up at night? Why is he having all this trouble sleeping? But even though it's not directly expressed in the film, you could assume it's from his experiences in war. However, it's not directly stated. There seems to be something else that's bugging him. Throughout the beginning of the film, and well, throughout most of the film in its entirety, he seems to complain about the urban decay that's befallen his city and country. New York was where he lives and operates as a taxi driver, where he sees the worst of it. What else would you expect, cramming millions of people of different ethnic and cultural backgrounds into a concrete jungle? Soon after, he becomes infatuated with a female political volunteer for the political candidate Charles Valentine. She goes by the name of Betsy. He has trouble mustering up the courage to talk to her and tries, but only gets so far as staring at her through a window of his taxi. Although one of these days he does get the courage to go up and talk to her and invite her out to lunch, to which she agrees. Unfortunately, just shortly after the lunch date they have, they go out again, but he tries to drag her down to his level and brings her to a porn theater, which was popular back then, where you get to go in public places and watch pornography with a bunch of other men in a dark theater. I'm not sure. Of course, she resents this and dumps him, and he suffers an existential crisis. He realizes all the things in his life is wrong. He's putting himself down. He's not doing anything right, and in his rage, he goes to her workplace and just totally berates her. He gets thrown out and threatened by her associate, who seems to have a crush on her by the name of Tom, and they threaten to call the police if he ever shows up again. This, of course, continues his existential crisis that forces him to do a little bit better. He goes ahead and rids himself of all the things that destroy his body, like his terrible diet, his alcoholism, and addiction to pornography. Though he betters himself, which is a commendable action, he still is upset about the world around him. The dark thoughts that surround his mind cause him to call up one of his cabbie buddies and set up an appointment with a known drug runner and gun runner by the name of Easy Andy. Travis looks to inflict damage upon the world that has done so much damage to him by purchasing a bunch of guns. We don't know yet exactly what he's going to do, but he goes about buying all these guns and trains that he's proficient with gun handling and shooting. Later in the film, he encounters a robbery taking place in the small shop or bodega where he's buying groceries. He sees someone robbing the convenience store guy and decides to take action. He approaches the shooter and kills him. This is interesting part in the film because we can imagine he finally gets the courage to murder someone. We don't really know if he did any action in the Marines or if he was stationed as some other individual or he did another job, but this is the first time we actually see him kill someone, and we can only assume that he gets the courage to go ahead and try out more of what he wants to do. A little bit later on, he finally musters up the courage to assassinate the political candidate that Betsy was advocating for, Charles Palantine. Though we're not given a direct reason as to why he wants to go about doing this, he chickens out right at the last moment. We don't know why he attempts to do this or why he chickens out, but you could only assume that it would do no good. What would he do? He would succeed and murder the political campaign candidate and what, rot in jail while they just replace him with another scumbag? It's a futile effort. Instead, he goes to a whorehouse where he finds they're selling underage women for sex. He decides to check it out further, and this is where we run into Isis, the 12-and-a-half-year-old prostitute who's under the management of Sport, the pimp we meet a little earlier, and he's not necessarily angry, but he's pleading with her to leave this lifestyle, and she's denying it, of course, at first. She likes what she's doing in a way, and she doesn't really know what she likes. She's a 12-year-old girl. She's totally under the spell, under the manipulation of this scumbag Sport, and Travis sees this, and he does his best to pull her away. She refuses, but agrees to go on a lunch date with him the next day. Now, I love the next part. It's when they actually go on this lunch date where so many brilliant observations are made. During this lunch date is when Iris does everything in her power to negate what Travis is saying about quitting this lifestyle and totally refuses the idea of going back to live with her parents. Hilariously, she mentions women's liberation as an excuse as to why she's a sex worker, as if contracting STDs from lowlifes is a form of female empowerment. Women's liberation is so obviously a scam perpetuated by lesser men to get women to sleep with them, a movement that was funded by the Rothschilds earlier in that era. After relentlessly trying to convince her otherwise, it seems as if she's interested, but not totally convinced. He again tries to assassinate Charles Palantine, but again chickens out, this time being a little bit more closer. He's actually in the crowd and is chased away by a Secret Service agent before he can carry out the deed. This time he realizes his efforts are better used murdering all those involved in this child sex trafficking ring. He and everyone knows the police are useless, and so he goes about taking this business onto his own. He goes through the shootout, murders everyone in the pimp house, and suffers some pretty horrible life-threatening injuries, but miraculously he survives. He's hailed as a hero and finds that Iris returns home to her family where they take care of her, and though he didn't assassinate the political candidate, he feels a lot of confidence and self-respect that he's actually done something about the horrible world around him. That's all that matters. And so ends a great film with many valuable lessons like stay away from drugs of any kind, focus on bettering yourself, don't waste your time with the police since they do nothing, and stay away from politics as well, since it's a rigged game. It's better to let dead wood burn than to throw yourself into the fire only to feed and fan the flames. Not to mention it's quite, I don't want to say idiotic, but rather egotistical of you to enter that lifestyle and not think that you can't get corrupt in the process of trying to fix this inherently, decrepit, corrupt policy, Speaking more on the cinematography, everything's great. The cinematography, the editing, pacing, and music especially is just fantastic. Everything works together to help set up the scenes and really convey great emotions and emphasize everything that needs to be. Practically everything about the film is great. Everything worked together to make the film as great as it is. It's honestly one of the greatest films ever made. Just one of the lessons you learn is just always focus on bettering yourself, avoid drugs, and treat women right. It's a great movie. I highly recommend watching it. Thank you for watching this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.